Sports betting in the U.S. is booming. During the 2021 NFL season, an estimated 45 million Americans are expected to wager at least $12 billion. Since a 2018 Supreme Court ruling, sports betting is now legal in more than 30 states.
This is that next frontier that the gaming industry has been looking for many years.
What we've seen is just massive levels of engagement from the perspective of people that are excited about being able to add this component to their viewing experience, whether it's in person or at home in places where you have mobile betting.
A flood of new customers eager for excitement and risk has made DraftKings one of the nation's biggest sports books. The company has live online sports betting in 15 states, and its iGaming casino segment, which includes blackjack, roulette, and slots, is available in 5 states.
Well, I think right now we're at the very early innings of the industry. I mean, the company's revenue is almost doubling year over year per our latest guidance. We're still live in states that on average have been live only a little over a year, and I think about a year and a half. Still most of the population left to legalize, and we're talking about a TAM that could be $60 billion plus if there were full legalizations.
In the third quarter of 2021, DraftKings revenue rose 60% from the year prior to $213 million. During that same period, with mobile betting launching in several states, the number of its monthly unique paying customers rose 31% to 1.3 million. And the online sports betting and gaming industry in the U.S. is just starting to grow. As of 2021, only 4% of gross gaming revenue in the U.S. was generated online, compared with 45% in a more mature market like the UK. The online sports betting market in the U.S. is expected to be worth nearly $40 billion by 2033. But critics argue that greater access to mobile sports betting could lead to an increase in gambling addiction. The National Council of Problem Gambling estimates the cost of obsessive gambling in the U.S. is already $7 billion annually, including fees related to the justice system, healthcare, job loss, and bankruptcy. So what does the future look like for legal sports betting in America? And what challenges lie ahead for sports betting providers like BetMGM, FanDuel, and DraftKings? Gambling in the U.S. dates back to colonial-era America. Lotteries were first used in the English colonies to finance projects including paving roads, building wharfs, and constructing churches. Horse racing got its start in the late 1660s in New York, greyhound racing in 1919 in California. In Las Vegas's first themed resort casino, the El Rancho Vegas, opened its doors in 1941. Betting on sports became illegal on a state-by-state basis throughout the early 1900s, due in part to the influence of organized crime and scandals involving a small number of athletes. In 1992, Congress passed the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, banning sports gambling nationwide in all but a few states, including Nevada. Sports betting threatened the integrity of the game, put adolescents at risk for gambling problems, and put student athletes in a vulnerable position, according to a 1999 National Gambling Impact Study.
For most Americans who, they bet on sports socially, they bet on the Super Bowl, they bet on March Madness, they all thought that, this is harmless and they were doing it in a legal manner, but the reality was they weren't.
The goal was always protecting the integrity of the game. Unfortunately, PASPA kind of ended up having a bit of a counter effect, but instead of actually getting rid of sports betting, what happened was it got rid of legal sports betting, or most legal sports betting.
By the late 2010s, Americans were illegally wagering $150 billion annually through black market offshore bookies, according to DraftKings CEO Jason Robbins. But in 2018, the gaming industry was given a boost. Led by New Jersey, the Supreme Court struck down the sports betting ban, leaving it up to the states to decide.
And since then, we've been seeing states, really one after the other, starting to pass new laws regarding sports betting, and in many cases, this has been accompanied by new law regarding accessing gambling via the internet.
And that led to a surge in mobile betting. According to media reports, New Yorkers were flocking across state lines, making New Jersey the sports betting capital of the country.
New Jersey was one of the first states out of the box. People that live in New York City and Manhattan would take the path across the river over to Hoboken for Saturday and Sunday so they could bet on sports.
We're going not just through the largest and fastest expansion of gambling in our nation's history, but a massive cultural shift, the likes of which we've never seen.
By September 2021, New Jersey became the first state in the nation to take in more than $1 billion worth of sports bets in a single month. State revenue that month from sports betting reached $82 million, almost 83% higher than a year earlier. Pro teams and media companies have also turned to sports betting to diversify their revenue. ESPN partnered with Caesars Entertainment and DraftKings. CNBC's parent company Comcast invested in FanDuel, and NBC Universal invested in PointsBet.
There's a huge number of partnerships that have started cropping up. And so the growth as we see it in this commercial industry is not just driven by the betting industry, but it's also being driven by sports. It's certainly being driven by media as well.
Sports betting creates a new level of fan engagement. And that is something that it is clear that the leagues understand, clear that the broadcasters understand.
Sports betting in the U.S. is a roughly $2.3 billion business and includes commercial casinos with mobile ventures like BetMGM, digital sportsbooks including FanDuel, the top player in U.S. sports betting, and of course, DraftKings. In the first half of 2021, sports betting revenue reached $1.8 billion, 19% more than the full 2020 year total. DraftKings got its start in 2012 as a fantasy sports platform by co-workers Jason Robbins, Paul Lieberman, and Matt Kalish out of Lieberman's Massachusetts apartment. In 2018, the trio launched DraftKings Sportsbook, becoming the first company to offer legal online and mobile sports betting in New Jersey. A few months later, it launched Casino, adding its online blackjack product to the Garden State. The following year, the company announced plans to go public, merging with a special purpose acquisition company and SB Tech, a European tech business. It also added Michael Jordan as a special advisor to the company's board of directors in 2020 and created partnerships with teams ranging from the New York Giants to the Detroit Pistons. Following a temporary shutdown of major sports due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Americans found themselves stuck at home, yearning for big league games and glued to their mobile devices. The company's revenue surged. At the end of 2020, DraftKings reported revenue of $614 million, 90% higher than 2019. Online gaming, which includes fantasy sports, Sportsbook, the company's sports betting product, and iGaming, the company's online casino that includes digital versions of blackjack, roulette, and slot machines, made up 84.2% of revenue. A little over 12% of revenue came from the gaming software segment, which includes the licensing of gaming products to other companies. Other smaller sources of sales made up the remainder.
This, really takes fans that maybe weren't interested in all kinds of games and makes them interested in every game. It takes games that maybe are well out of reach in the fourth quarter, and because the spread or your fantasy lineup is still in play, people are still watching the whole way through. You can make prop bets up until the last and in-game bets up until the last play of the game.
And the pandemic helped in other ways. Massive tax revenue losses at the state level sped up momentum for sports gambling. As of October 2021, sports betting was legal in 32 states and the District of Columbia.
The background on this from a state level perspective is the state budgets are more challenged than they would have been otherwise. And that certainly has induced state legislatures to consider legalization, which has accelerated the process that we would have expected to occur post-2018's ruling.
As of November 2021, DraftKings had an average of 1.3 million monthly unique paying customers. To attract new users, DraftKings has saturated the airwaves with advertisements.
DraftKings new sportsbook app. You can bet on the games you want anytime.
From January 1st to September 9th, 2021, DraftKings national TV ad spend was up 98% from the previous year. In 2020, DraftKings spent $495 million on sales and marketing, 167% higher than a year earlier.
We're seeing not just the general public, but regulators in states where sports betting is essentially wide open and available to the constituency. We're seeing backlash from these regulators who are talking about getting complaints about extensive advertising.
And in addition to its barrage of TV commercials, the company has also expanded its reach through acquisitions. In August 2021, DraftKings bought Golden Nugget Online for $1.5 billion. The deal brings with it 5 million Golden Nugget casino players. As of August 2021, DraftKings had mobile or retail betting operations in 17 states and provided sports and gaming technologies for operators in 17 countries. It was also an authorized gaming operator of the NBA and MLB and an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The Super Bowl is one of the biggest betting events on the sports calendar. In 2020, an estimated 22 million Americans bet more than $6 billion on the game. But according to the National Council on Problem Gambling, about 4% of those gamblers, or 880,000 individuals, have a gambling problem. This includes betting to escape feelings of anxiety, viewing gambling as a way to make money, or being unable to set limits on time and money spent. According to the group, 2 million Americans have a severe gambling problem, and another 4 to 6 million have mild or moderate gambling problems. Vulnerable populations include young people and athletes.
We haven't caught up yet with the consequences. Everybody's focused on the revenue, on the good things, on the profits, and not a lot of us are thinking about the public health aspects of this huge expansion of gambling, this huge shift.
Athletes are generally wired to be competitive. That's a big part of what makes them such successful professional athletes. Those same traits are the types of things that might make an athlete more susceptible to gambling harm.
To prevent problem gamblers, DraftKings advises users to set limits on how much money you deposit in your account, how much money you wager, and on the amount of time you play. The company has also provided funding to the International Center for Responsible Gaming and collaborated with the American Gaming Association to promote a public service campaign in all 10 DraftKings retail sportsbooks.
For most people, it's never an issue, but the last thing we want at this exciting stage when everyone's talking about all the great things happening is to have negative experiences for people. So this is something we've made a real priority at the company. Responsible gaming is actually in our mission statement.
Americans have been betting on sports as long as there have been sports to bet on. Previously, they only bet illegally. And so now we have an ecosystem that is much stronger to protect the student athletes in the cases of college, the athletes at the professional level. It brings law enforcement, it brings fencing, it brings operators who can, through algorithmic analysis, look at anomalous betting patterns after a betting line has been established.
And DraftKings has faced other headwinds too. After its stock price hit an all-time high closing price of $71.98 in March 2021, it turned lower over the next few months after questions surfaced regarding its future in the highly competitive sports betting market. A 2021 report by Hindenburg Research alleged that Bulgarian-based gaming tech company SB Tech generates significant revenue from questionable gambling practices outside of the US. In a statement, DraftKings said, "This report is written by someone who is short on DraftKings stock with an incentive to drive down the share price. Our business combination with SB Tech was completed in 2020. We conducted a thorough review of their business practices, and we were comfortable with the findings." But despite those issues, analysts remain bullish and say DraftKings could see profitability as early as 2023, and it could see solid growth over the remainder of the decade. The company could benefit from other trends too. The three largest U.S. states, California, Florida, and Texas, which accounts for about 90 million people or more than a quarter of U.S. residents, currently don't have online sports betting on the books. That could change as new states gain access to legal sports betting.
What is my player going to do? How many points is my team going to score? How many points is the other team going to score? These games within the game, if you will, really create opportunities for fan engagement that just didn't exist before. And I think that it's clear that leagues and teams and arenas and even advertisers and food and beverage guys all recognize that there is high value in sustained fan engagement and that sports betting is an important piece to that.
We want to expand geographically. We want to expand into new product lines. I think we have a proven track record of being able to do that, mostly organically. And I think that really what we're trying to build is much larger than sports betting or DFS or iGaming. We want to be a big tech company. We want to be in the same conversation with companies like Amazon and the like. So, that is where we're trying to head.